Destin, I pitched you an idea when we were talking about stuff that we'd kind of been saving up that we wanted to talk about. And I had a science-y question for you the other night, and you didn't let me do it.
What do you mean?
I was like, hey, will you teach me about the thing I'm going to say in a minute? And you were like, I will not.
Yeah, that's right. I remember this.
Is that because we're in a fight emotionally?
No, it's because I'm not the guy to teach it.
Who is the guy to teach it?
Jeremy Fielding.
Well, then we should have him teach it.
That's good because he's sitting right there.
Here I am.
Okay, this is what I'd like to know. And I don't know how this thing works. This is not performative. I would like to come into this conversation not knowing the essentials of how an electric motor works. I would like to come out of this conversation having a functional layperson's level knowledge of how an electric motor works.
Interesting. Okay.
Is that the kind of thing you do? Is that a service you offer at this point in your life?
Usually in video, yes, where I have all kinds of props and interesting things I can show. So it'll be a little bit of a challenge trying to describe it verbally, but I think I can do it.
I'll make it even a bigger challenge than that with ineptitude. All I have to do is simply be me, and it will get harder.
I've studied motors before, and I know there are different categories of motors. And so I think what I would like out of this conversation, Jeremy, if you could do us the honor, is I would like to back it down to first principles.
Okay.
Like all the way down to like how I get something to move from here to here with an electromagnet.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then how do we get that to go around an axle? And there's many different ways to do that, right?
Yes. Yes, there is.
So does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, so let's start with this question. What is the definition of a motor?
Well, specifically speaking about electric motors as opposed to engines using gasoline or something like that, would be a device that takes magnetism and turn that into motion. Would be, in my opinion, the simplest way to describe it.
And so a motor is an inherently electrical device?
Yes, when you use the term motor, you will specifically be talking about electrical devices. Yeah.
Something that performs a similar function using combustion is an engine?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
See, I'm already learning things. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, there are hydraulic motors and things like that, but what you're thinking about, like he wouldn't be thinking about a hydraulic motor. He's thinking about an electric motor.
Yeah, that's a fair thing. And the concept is kind of similar, except, but yeah, you're using hydraulic power to spin it, and let's not go there.
Okay, so the goal of a motor is to make a thing spin.
You can have...
Yes, I mean, in turn, you can have motors that move things linearly. I would say that it's better to say that the whole idea of the motor is to use that magnetism to get some kind of motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's why we call it a motor, because it linguistically derives from the same word as motion to animate something.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I mean, well, why do we use the term like fine motor skills or things like that, right? It's all converting power to motion, right?
Fair enough. There may be a relationship there, but I couldn't confirm that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think I'm getting it. The principle is we want to take electromagnetism and move crap with it.
Yes.
Okay, we're winning so far. And where would a normal person who doesn't think about these things be most likely to encounter a motor in their home or in their daily life? What devices that we touch all the time?
Absolutely every room, everywhere, there's going to be an electric motor. If you think about ceiling fans, any kind of exhaust vent, your air conditioning unit, your heater, your microwave, your dishwasher, your refrigerator, if it has any moving parts or it has a fan inside of it, it has a motor inside of it.
Is a fan the most common place where we would probably encounter a motor in a household?
Yeah, I would say the fan is probably the one you encounter the most. That's an accurate statement, yeah.
An automated lock, that's a motor converting electromagnetism, electricity from the battery to a motor that slides that deadbolt in and out?
Specifically, you would call that a solenoid instead of a motor.
What's a solenoid?
A solenoid is it's very similar to a motor. In fact, it'd be kind of hard to draw a line between the two because solenoids are giving you a linear motion and the stroke is very short. And because of that, that class of I don't think you can actually call it a motor, but that class of device that's also using a magnet to move something would be a solenoid.
A solenoid is probably a great place to start, wouldn't you think? Like that's the most basic unit of motion with electromotive force, right?
Absolutely. Well, I would actually start simpler than that and
Really?
start with the idea of just an electromagnet.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
How's that different than a magnet? Wait, do you remember that SNL skit where they made fun of the insane clown posse? ICP made a song about like the world is full of magical mysteries. Maybe that's actually the parody. And then SNL did a parody of it, and they were like, the lyrics were like, blankets, how do they work? And things like that. Are children smaller or just very far away? And it's like all of these kind of like drunk high kind of questions. But I'm legitimately asking, what is the difference between a magnet that I think is at it's the electron level, right? That's your charges.
I don't think it
attract or repel.
I don't. Is it electrons? I don't even know.
Yeah. Well, there's I don't think I want to try to break that down in this particular scenario. Yeah, I would say that because there are rare earth magnets that just naturally have magnetism, and but that's a topic that I don't feel trained enough on to try to give it like an elementary explanation.
Destin, how do magnets work? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy's referencing these things called lodestones. So if you go way back, some of the first usable magnets, as I understand it, were compasses.
Yeah.
Somebody figured out, like, if I take a needle and I hit it really hard, like literally hit it with a hammer, somehow something happens and it becomes magnetized.
Huh.
And if I float it in a cork, like if I stick a needle into did I say magnet? I meant needle. If I take a needle.
You said needle.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I hit a needle really hard, it'll become magnetized. I stick it into a cork, stick that in water, it'll align to the same place every time. And it aligns with the Earth's magnetic field.
Incredible.
And so when they figured that out, that was a really big deal for navigation because you could find something that was pointing in one direction all the time. They didn't quite understand about magnetic declination and how here in Alabama, that compass needle points 3 degrees off from the North Pole. But if you go over to where you're from in the Western United States, it points a little further off.
Were you unable to think of what state I live in?
No, South Dakota.
I'm just ripping you.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. Once they figured that out, and then at some point in time, they're like, who was it that figured out the electromagnet? I don't know who that was. Was
I
it
don't know
Faraday or
either.
Maxwell?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going with Dick Electromagnet. I think that was the guy's name, and they named it after him. That's my guess. We all have a guess in. That's good.
Fair enough. So I guess maybe we should pick it up with the electromagnet.
We'll do that. So magnets are a magical mystery that no one understands, including the insane clown posse. However, electromagnets how do they work? How are they different?
Well, what's interesting about electromagnets is the fact that this is how we discovered that there is a relationship between electricity flowing through a wire and magnetism. And that is when you run current through a wire, let's just say you connect a wire to a battery, and then you put that on top of a compass. The compass needle will actually turn and align itself with the magnetic field being produced around the wire, because there's the magnetic field built up around the wire itself. If you coil the wire up, it actually gets stronger. If you turn the electricity off, it just goes back to pointing towards the Earth's magnetic field because the magnetic field actually collapses. It's gone. So when there's electricity flowing, you have a magnet. When there's no electricity flowing, no magnet.
Huh. So that expression that I use far too much about it kind of made my compass spin is a reference to that discovery that magnetic disturbance around a compass
will make it
fools
spin.
with the compass because it's not aligning to, you called it the Earth's magnetic field.
The Earth's magnetic field, yeah.
It's interacting with this artificial magnetic field that we created using a battery, using electricity.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it artificial, but I would say a new, closer magnetic field that you've produced is now right next to it, and its effect is stronger, and so now it's oriented towards that magnetic field.
So you said the tighter we coil the wire, so we're assuming copper for the wire, just
It could be copper, it could be aluminum. Both of them are very good conductors of electricity and would give you a magnetic, well, anything conducting electricity will give you a magnetic field.
And I think it's the number of coils, isn't it?
I was going to say it's the number of turns. As you stack them on top of each other, the strength of the magnetic field builds up.
If it was 10 loops with a 10-foot diameter in the middle of the circle formed by the loops, it would produce the same amount. If you put the same electricity through that, or one that was only 1 inch in diameter with the same number of coils. So let's say 2 coils, 10 rounds each. One is huge, it's 10 feet across. One is only 1 inch across, but we're connecting them to the same battery. They'd produce the same amount. The size of the coil doesn't matter? Sort
of. So the difference is when you have a bigger distance, you've spread out the same magnetic power. I'm abusing that word a lot. That's not the right word.
Abuse away. You're trying to make it make sense to me.
Yeah, but you've spread it out of a much larger area. What you really need is like magnetic density. That's, again, probably the wrong word, but you need it to be closer together. What we normally do when we build an electromagnet is we put a piece of iron in the middle and we coil the wire up really tight around the iron. And that actually helps to concentrate all of the magnetic field into that one space. Iron, conducts the magnetic field very well. And so you'd get a much stronger effect.
Can I give you permission to do something, Jeremy? So I saw you, I'm on the other side of the room. I saw you explaining something to Matt, and I saw your eyebrows. They were furrowed just a little bit. You were reaching for words, and you're like, well, I could say this word, but Matt doesn't know that word in that context. And so words like flux and all these different things, you were trying to figure out the word to say, but you knew that the communication wouldn't happen. So I think what we do here is you are given permission to use the wrong words.
Okay.
The goal here is communication, not engineering precision.
Thank you.
Does that work?
Yeah, or you can use the big word and I'll ask you a question.
Yeah. So just whatever. Yeah. So like he did it like 3 times in that last sentence.
I saw it too.
Yeah.
he was being very considerate of me.
He was like, okay, it's not power, it's flux, but it's not. And he was saying a lot of things.
Like, dang it, I'm hurting my friend right now.
Yeah. Okay, so we're given permission to mess up. So if you're listening to this from here forward, just understand we know that we're going to use the wrong terms at time to time. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the piece of iron in the middle of the coil?
Yes.
Is that to intensify the electromagnetic field, to localize the electromagnetic field, or to weaponize it, to make it transferable?
Yeah, to localize it is a really good way to think about it. You have it all focused in this one area, as opposed to having the magnetic field spread out a little more widely in the air around it. It's now focused in the iron because it wants to flow there.
Okay, next question. How does that help anything? How does that create motion? How do you harness that? How is this anything more than a parlor trick at this point?
Okay, great. So let's think about this. When you take 2 refrigerator magnets, right? And almost every kid's played with magnets and pushed them together. And we know that if you take like fields, South Pole to South Pole, and we try to push them together, there's resistance. Sure. It acts like a spring. If you compress that spring, you've added some energy now, and when you let go of one of them, it'll shoot away. Well, that's basically what motors do. A basic DC motor has 2 permanent magnets on the outside.
Direct current?
Direct current, yep. And then you have an electromagnet. When you run electricity through it, it becomes a magnet, and it wants to align itself with the other magnets. If we time it just right, turning that magnetic field on and off, we can make them push and pull at the right time, and thus you get rotation in this case. So if you wanted to move a magnet on a table, I could lay a wire next to it, and nothing happens until I put power to it. Well, now it's a magnet, it pushes the other magnet away, and you've got motion. We take that and we convert that into rotary motion, which we can get more into in a little bit.
So an electromagnet, the idea is to weaponize magnetic repulsion? What do you call that they don't want to go together? The bounce-apartiness. What is the term for that?
No, it's actually called the bounce-apartiness.
I really like that a lot.
Yeah, I love the bounce-apartiness. I'm going to use that in my next video.
Okay. So the goal is just to weaponize this natural feature of magnets that they don't want to be together if they're the same pole is pointing at the same pole.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
and
you're controlling it.
also the opposite. We also weaponize the opposite where they're attracted when it's opposite poles. If you want to pull, you can set up the magnetic field in one direction. If you want to push, you put it the other way. This is the clever part about electromagnets. Not only can you turn it on and off, you can also decide which side is North Pole and South Pole by flipping which direction the electricity is flowing. When it's flowing in one direction, the North Pole is on one end. We'll just say the top and the South Pole is on the bottom. But if I flip the current, it'll flip the magnetic field, and the South Pole will now be at the top, North Pole at the bottom.
Okay, so we really have 4 possible positions combined for these switches. We have push on, push off. We have pull on, pull off.
Absolutely.
Huh.
I love that description.
That's great.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it's starting to come into focus. I can't picture what it looks like. The coil visual made sense. The put some iron in the middle of the coil. I mean, I guess I can picture that. That makes sense. Like where the magnets are and how they push against each. Like, are there literal magnets like that you have on the back of the letters on your refrigerator when you were a kid that are in the motor somehow, like little rocks in there? Or is this all manufactured from, I mean, do you have to go mine magnets or something to do this?
Well, it depends on what kind of motor it is. So there are actually quite a few different types. Some of them have 2 electromagnets. Some of them have permanent magnets, like a magnet that was manufactured, the kind you will put on your refrigerator, but much larger.
Okay.
And then you can even shape them and curve them so that they fit inside the curvature of the motor. It doesn't have to be a flat disc. It can be curved, and they often are. And then some of them have an electromagnet and just an aluminum disc on the inside. There's no electromagnet. We actually induce current in this thing that's not electrically connected to anything. It's called an induction motor, and that one is really would be a really fun challenge to try to explain here. But
I can't wait.
But I've talked about it so much. It's one of my favorite topics. But
All right, so this is where I just came alive in the conversation, because all this before I was sitting over here, I was like, oh yeah, Matt doesn't know this.
Yeah, you're like that a lot.
Yeah, and then once Jeremy started explaining the different classes of motor, I thought to myself, like the forest is getting darker for me. I know some things, DC, AC, brushless, servo, stepper, these kinds of things. I know these words, and I think I know how some of them work, but Jeremy is getting to the place where I'm getting excited.
nice.
Yeah, I'm getting very excited.
Because you're going to learn things, or because I'm going to learn things and you're excited for me to learn them?
Because I'm going to learn things. Yeah, I'm going to learn things.
That ups the stakes. That does make it more fun.
Yeah. So
Can I just keep asking questions? Because I have one. I don't want to get too far ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please do.
What are magnets? Is it magnetite ore? Is it a type of rock? Is it an element? Is it a compound? Can you take any different, like, are there multiple types of metal? Can you liquefy a bunch of ingredients in a lab and pour them and smelt them and make a magnet from scratch? Do we have enough magnets in the world? What is it?
I mean, the most that I could speak intelligently about is I know that we can take iron and other materials and we can magnetize it and turn it into a magnet. And there are also devices that can demagnetize this metal. But how exactly that works, I'm not entirely sure.
I'm aware of ceramic magnets. I'm aware of rare earth magnets that Jeremy was talking about. I'm aware of like typical iron. I mean, iron can just be magnetized if everything is aligned. In fact, on the moon, for example, some parts of the moon, they were able to figure out where some rocks were pointing on the moon before a meteor came in and hit it because of the magnetic orientation in some of the rocks. There's some really neat things about magnets, but you're asking a very difficult question. It is not a dumb question.
So, okay, so this is what I'm getting at. What I'm hearing from both of you is that the actual magnet, and again, I'm picturing like a little black rock that I saw in gift stores and on the back of things I would put on the fridge that we played with as kids. People got magnets from like their dads, like real good magnets. Some of them were black, kind of like a matte black look, no sheen to them. Some people got fancy magnets that looked almost like a polished rock, kind of silver looking thing.
But the black ones would be ceramic magnets. The really polished, shiny ones would be neodymium magnets.
Neodymium?
They're much more powerful for the same size. But yes.
Well, they were much more fun to play with when we were kids. You could take one and they'd be like 15 and they'd all snap together like a snake or something. It was really cool. But let me ask it this way. Are magnets rare? Is the category that is like naturally occurring magnets, is that a rare earth? What do we call these? Where does it fit in the grand scheme of resources?
I wouldn't describe it as rare because we can manufacture them. But
just
beyond,
as well?
Beyond that, it's a pretty challenging question to answer. But I would say in terms of like scarcity, I would say no, we can take material and make it a magnet. And that's something that's mass produced on an enormous scale.
Okay. So there's no scarcity of magnets, no problem there. What I think I'm hearing then is that the effect, okay, magnets exist in nature, right? There can just be like a rock, and for no reason other than it's just that way, it's magnetic.
A lodestone, yeah. You can get a rock that's got some combination of like iron and oxides. I don't know. There's some chemical element involving iron and oxygen, and it's just like naturally occurring, and it's a magnet.
And so is there just some secret code when you draw a diagram of an element like Fe? And let's say we have the diagram of that element up here. What's the atomic number of iron?
Oh, I don't know, Matt.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay, so I assume though, I mean, there's got to be some kind of subatomic charge issue, right? That makes this happen, like the right combination of elements, the right combination of valence electrons, it adds up to.
You're asking us to explain the
and
Trinity.
Okay.
You're asking us to explain the Trinity. We are not experts on this area.
Okay. So magnets just happen, but we can make them happen.
Yeah.
And it can be applied to several different elements, several different compounds. And there are various ways we can make it happen. You can bang a piece of metal with a hammer, and through sheer magic, it makes a magnet. You can do ceramic's a chemical process, right? You bake something to make ceramic?
Ceramic magnets?
Yeah.
Possibly. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay, but so we can make them through some sort of process in a lab. We can bang metal with a hammer and it happens. It happens in nature. So magnet isn't a rock. Magnet is a feature, a buff, a bonus that can be applied to many different types of metallic materials.
So I've always thought about this too. I don't know the answer to your question. I understand that there's this thing called light. I don't know what light is, particle wave. We can talk about that. But I do know that there are photons. That's a particle description. I also know there's waves, but there's something that's some energy there in light. Likewise, electricity, I understand to be the flow of electrons, current. I understand that. I don't know what the flow of magnet is. I don't know. I do know what seems to happen is much like an electric current likes to go in a circuit. It likes to start at one place and end at the other side.
Okay.
It goes from a plus to a minus. I know magnets like to do that as well. So a magnet likes to go out one side of a rock, and it'll like loop around in the air, and it'll come back into the other side of the rock.
So I'm going to draw something
but
here.
We don't call that plus minus. We call that north-south when it comes to magnets.
So I've seen drawings of Earth that kind of have like this sort of like arced lines going around it. Is that the magnetic field?
The Earth's magnetic field, yes.
So the Earth is a great big giant rock, and when I see drawings of that magnetic field thing with all the lines coming out of it on those parabolas, that's what you're talking about.
I don't know that they're
happens
parabolas.
on the same thing happens on a rock I can hold in my hand or the planet.
Yeah, those arced lines are just representing where the magnetic field is flowing if to visualize it, but obviously it's visually transparent. You can't see it. And one of the ways that we can force it to flow in one place would be using something like iron. Instead of it flowing through the air, it wants to flow more naturally through iron. And that's why we like using iron with electromagnets instead of through the air.
This helped, what you both said.
Yeah, and there's another thing that I think is really interesting. I did this video where this company called Polymagnet, they could use a laser or something to like heat up a rock in a certain way, and they could like shape the magnetic fields. So they're basically designing the magnetic field. And so you could make, instead of having one big loopy-doo come out one side of the rock and go into the other side of the rock, you could make a bunch of little loopy-doos come out of the face and go right back into the face. And so what that did is that they could shape the magnetic field. Instead of making a big arc, they could make a bunch of small ones, and it would have different gripping powers at different standoff distances.
Why?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because it's rad?
Why would they do that?
Yeah.
Well, if you could shape a magnetic field, like Jeremy is going to tell us in a little bit, you want your magnet to be a certain size and have a certain shape. I'm going to call them loopy-doos. You want certain loopy-doo, but a field of influence in that magnetic field. But like Jeremy was saying earlier, the distance between the magnets matters. And so if you have a very small grip, I'll call it, with the loopy-doos.
Yeah.
I'm getting stupid now, Jeremy, but
I love where you're going. Yeah, please.
Yeah. And then versus the longer grip with like one big loopy-doo, a magnetic field line is what it's actually called.
Okay.
And so all this ties into this really special area of physics called Maxwell's equations. And I've told you about all I know about Maxwell's equations by saying that they exist. I mean,
I would love, to me, one of the most interesting things about specifically shaping the magnetic field is that you can control the way it interacts with other magnets. Whether if you want something to not be attracted until it's in exactly the right position, then that's the effect you could get. It doesn't pull, and then when it's exactly where you want it, it snaps into place. Like, that's perfect. And there are all sorts of mechanical applications where that would be really good. You want it to be in a very specific spot.
Like an iPhone charger?
Yeah.
Okay. So you said you can't see a magnetic field. I feel like I remember an experiment from 10th grade science or something where maybe we had a little camera film case full of little iron shavings or something.
Yeah.
And I spread them out on a table. Maybe we scuffed them all out flat. And then we took different magnets and put it in the middle, and they'd kind of, I seem to remember that we could see the magnetic loopy-doos using some sort of indicator, in this case, iron. Does that sound like science?
Absolutely. I mean, essentially, you're taking these little iron shavings and sprinkling them into the magnetic field, and they will naturally align with the magnetic field that's present. And so that gives you a visual representation of where the field lines are.
Is there some kind of like magnet goggles you can put on to just see it? Like if you're trying to build this stuff?
that company I was telling you about called Polymagnet, they had this special, just what you're describing. It's that magnet paper kind of stuff. So basically it's a film, and the film has, I'm showing you a picture of it now. It's Smarter Every Day, episode 153. It's a film where you can actually see the magnetic fields if you put this film over a magnet. And this particular thing I'm showing you, it's a magnet, and it says Smarter Every Day on the magnet itself. And that was something they did. They actually printed that magnetic field on there, and they made very small loopy-doos. So it just comes right out of the face of the magnet and goes right back in. But the film that they're using there, I think it's called magnet paper or something, or magnet, I don't know what it's called. Do you have any idea?
I don't know the name of it, but I've seen it many times. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
You made that video very early in our friendship. You sent it to me before you published it, and I was blown away. That video is so good that you just pulled back up.
It's a neat thing.
I don't remember why it's good. I just remember thinking after I got done previewing that for you, this is one of the best pieces of educational internet I have ever seen. And I imagine I'd still feel that way today, but what's the name of the video?
Mind-blowing magic magnets. Smarter Every Day 153.
I see what you did there with the alliteration.
Yeah.
That was a very, very good video.
Fantastic.
I did not remember that you had...
Can we talk about motors now?
We're talking
about magnets. I want to get to the part that I'm learning from Jeremy.
But you guys are ready for that. I'm not. I don't understand.
I don't care
I
about
don't understand the foundational
crap.
part. Okay, well, I do care about my prerequisite part, and I thank you both for your patience with me. Okay, we've got a few things now as we get toward a motor. We have an electrical source.
Mm-hmm.
We have a coil, a coil of wire. Maybe it's aluminum, maybe it's copper. Do we always have a piece of iron in there to contain and localize the magnetic field?
Ideally, yes.
Okay, so we have that, and we have one of many different types of magnets. Now that we've established that there's a lot of different ways to get there, what happens next?
Well, the DC motor is...
Can we do solenoid? Can you tell him about just clicking a thing into the coil?
Okay, yeah.
Is that a good path to get to where you're going?
I think so.
Solenoid and solenoid different?
A lot of people say them different ways.
But it's the same thing.
It's said both ways, and I don't know which one's the right one.
Okay.
I just say solenoid.
I've always said solenoid because that's what my grandpa said when he explained it to me and I didn't listen.
Solenoid. But a lot of people say it the way you just said it.
I have always imagined that like cylinder-noid. I've had that wrong my whole life. Whoops.
Now you know.
Okay, what are thems?
Okay. Essentially, it's what we described a few moments ago. We said if you push two magnets together and you hold them, they kind of act like a spring. There's some energy stored there now. When you let go of one, it pushes away. If you take an electromagnet, or a wire rather, and you put it next to something that's magnetic, nothing happens until you run electricity through the wire. But when you do, it'll push it away. In this case, we've created a cylinder, and inside of it, you've got a coil of wire connected to a battery and a switch, right? Just a little bit outside of that coil, you've got some type of material that will respond to a magnet.
Okay.
Okay. So when you turn the power on or flip the switch and you've turned your magnet on rather, it will be that piece of metal will be drawn into the magnetic field, and whatever is attached to that piece of metal will move. So if you want to push something or pull something, that's what a solenoid does. It's basically just, look at that. Yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Okay, you think it's very interesting. You think wavy hand, good try, but I'm ashamed of you and you're embarrassing me in front of my engineer friend right now.
You've drawn a picture.
Yeah.
And Jeremy is a friendlier guy than I am. Yeah. Right? I mean, Jeremy's being more like, I know you want to know. Like, you want to know.
I do want to know.
Jeremy's like patting you on your head, like, you're good job. Good trying. You're doing good. But
patting the head of bald people is good luck.
This is what I drew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, what do you know? The guy who almost has his PhD finished in mechanical engineering drew a superior model of a super simple electromagnetic part than the guy who hasn't had a class on this in his whole life did. Great job. Well, maybe next we could go box infants.
No, I mean, I gave you a hand wave. I'm like, yeah, it was a good effort. So
it sucks.
It's very close. So you've got a coil.
I have a coil
in a cylinder.
I put it inside a cylinder.
Somehow you're putting a battery into it. Like you're like physically putting the battery into the cylinder.
Well, what I imagined was that the end of the coil is coming out here and it's going down to the 9 volt.
Well, just put the battery off to the side. Just like erase that battery that you've got going into the cylinder and kind of put it off to the side.
All right, the battery's gone. And
the battery at the bottom didn't bother me, by the way. I thought it was fine. Like, I figured you were getting the idea that there's a power source and it's connected to the coil.
Okay, so the coil, is the positive and negative coming out opposite ends of the coil then?
They're at the other ends of the... Oh, wait, ask her... Say the question again. Let me just make sure I understand.
Okay. The positive and the negative to connect to the battery to complete the circuit.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I assume that one end of this coil, let's call that a positive, And this other end of this coil, let's call that the negative.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then these got to come back around here to my battery thusly. Like that.
Yes.
There's the positive side, there's the negative side.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I could probably put a switch in line somewhere on that so that I can kill that circuit and thus the solenoid doesn't do things.
Now yes, absolutely.
So when I turn on the blinker to my 1974 Mercury Comet, on which I was told by the mechanic that the solenoid was out, when I hit that switch, what's happening is some little imaginary inline switch on this circuit goes to the on position. And now this is activated and it's firing off and on repeatedly to make the blinker light up and turn off.
That's such a good question.
Yeah, because he's missed certain words. so like you're right, but like you missed half the words, but you have the understanding.
Well, what I was going to say is that's actually a different kind of solenoid.
Dang it!
It's a relay.
It's a relay.
Well, the guy called it a solenoid.
But a relay is a solenoid, and I've never thought about that. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's okay. I made a whole video about this because I really love this topic. Okay,
Blinkers?
no, solenoids and relays.
Okay.
Okay, but in short, a relay is a switch that controls other switches. Now, you might be thinking, why would you make a switch to flip on and off other switches?
That's exactly
Right?
what I was
That's the
thinking, as a
question.
matter of fact. Yes.
There are all sorts of reasons you'd want to do that. For one, if you want to power, say, a really large motor, right? Or a really large motor, let's just something with thousands of horsepower, right? It's going to have really big cables. Now, imagine a switch for a cable that's as big as your arm. It's going to be a big switch, right? Lots of voltage, lots of power. You don't want a man to stand next to that and flip that on and off and be that close to that much power.
Right, because he'll get vaporized if something goes wrong.
Yeah,
which
but
I hate.
What if you could flip a little tiny switch that pushed a magnet that pushed the switch? That's what a relay is.
I would want that.
Yeah.
So does the switch have to switch a bigger switch to switch a bigger switch to switch the biggest switch? Or can you scale a little one to a huge one and you only ever need one relay?
Generally, you can scale a really small one to switch really big switches. Like you can control thousands of watts of power with milliamps. Yeah. The really small switch.
Huh.
It's
Why
fantastic. It gets
is a
better,
blinker
though.
a relay then? Oh, okay, tell me how it gets better.
Because you can not just flip one switch, but you can have intelligent circuits now where when one thing is on, something else flips off. Let's just say, for example, every time I walk out of my shop, I want to not only turn the lights off, I also want my air compressor to go off so it doesn't turn on in the middle of the night. Just made that up off the top of my head. All right. So I can connect a relay on the light switch that not only flips off the lights, it also flips off the power to my air compressor. And now both of them are turned off with one switch. And you can get even smarter and make it like a computer where there are multiple solenoids connected together. When you flip one on, 3 other ones turn on, and the third one turns off. And it's basically like a mechanical computer at that point with zeros and ones. You can make a really complicated series of things happen with just one switch flip.
So then Alexa or Google Home is just a softwareizing of what you're doing mechanically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. How is a blinker then a relay and not a solenoid?
Well, if you are having an issue with, in that particular situation, you've just separated the power sources. You want to have a little tiny wire come all the way inside of the car that you can flip, but the thing under the hood can be connected directly to the battery and have bigger power cables. But the starter for your car needs a lot of power to crank up your engine. So you wouldn't want to run those big cables all the way into the steering wheel and have someone try to connect those 2 wires in the steering wheel. Instead, you have 2 little tiny wires come in. You flip a relay basically when you turn your key, and that's what activates your starter.
So an ignition is a relay.
Yes.
Huh. So all So any electrical thing that you control from your wheel or your dash is going to be a relay because of the constraints of what it would take to run that full load through your steering column, and it would just clutter things up and be a mess.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that's handled electrically now because of modern technology. We have computer circuits that can, so it's not
in the 1974 Mercury Comet.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, the older your car is, the more likely there's a mechanical solution there, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think I understand it. So what are the applications for a solenoid that I would experience around my house? Where do I have those?
Usually we use solenoids when you have a really short motion, because the stroke is very limited. You're not going to get it to move very far. So if we're talking about moving something a quarter inch or maybe up to 2 inches, you could find a solenoid for that. But generally, if you need to move it further than that, you would need something else, like a linear actuator, a motor, or something like that.
Is the movement happening entirely? Is it contained within the little cylinder? Or does it expose when it fires, when it's in the on position? Does some actuator move outside?
Well, if you think of, there's usually like a little pin. It's sort of shaped like a pin.
I cannot
pin
picture
is the
this.
right word. Just think about a metal rod.
Okay.
When you have that metal rod hanging and is sitting just outside of the coil of wire. When you turn the coil on, it gets sucked in. It's magnetized.
Okay.
It's pulled.
Okay.
You can attach anything you want to the other end of that metal rod. So you can have a hook hanging out of it. You can have a big fist hanging out of it, and you can give a 1-inch punch if you want, like whatever it is that you want to do.
But only 1 inch.
When you pull it, you're going to get that action. And solenoids can be set up to push or pull. So it can start inside the coil and push it out, or it can start outside the coil and get pulled in.
Okay. So solenoid versus electromotor. Firstly, it's a question of scale. The technology is very similar. The principles are very similar. But the biggest divider between the two is how far do you want something to move? How long is the stroke?
Well, I think the most important thing to think about is, as Jeremy has explained the solenoid, is you have a coil, and when you apply a voltage to that coil, you get this electromotive force that pulls the plunger into the solenoid, right? So it's got that magnet there, and you want to pull something into the magnet, for example, right?
Okay.
So that principle itself, when I apply this direction of current to that coil, it's going to pull that thing just a little bit, like it'll pull it 1 inch, right? That concept is important because where Jeremy's about to go, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, is we're going to do that, but then you want to keep doing it in different ways to go around and around and around.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just imagine pulling something. I make a circuit and I pull something 1 inch.
Yes.
Just think about, you got that, right?
Can I reverse that so that the iron rod lives in the coil in its neutral position, but when I activate the current, it pushes out?
You are learning, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I can see the wheels turning. That's exactly right. It can be set up to push or pull.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have something, I'm looking at it, I'm learning how to make things, and I realize all I know how to use are solenoids, and I have something that needs to happen over a 12-inch stroke instead of 1 inch. Now I have to learn what an electromotor is. What is that?
Well, I think we go linear motor next. Do we go linear motor next, or what do you do, Jeremy?
I mean, functionally, they operate pretty much the same, linear or rotary. So,
I mean, the way he asked the question, he said, a solenoid pulls something 1 inch. How do I go further than that?
I agree that the next leap would be a linear motor. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So let me reframe the question. I've been having trouble with intruders. So I use my knowledge of a solenoid to set up a Home Alone style booby trap whereby if an intruder walks in, a giant red boxing mitt will fire 1 inch. Yeah. And it just isn't knocking out the intruders. They continue to loot my stuff. So I'm wanting to get that up to 12 inches, which I think is going to be the optimal stroke length for knocking out the kooky intruders in this Home Alone scenario. But I don't want to kill them.
Okay. I
Would
like
you
where this is
recommend a
going.
linear motor?
Well, I'd recommend maybe a rocket, but we can discuss that another time.
I've asked the wrong question.
I think, oh gosh. Okay, so let's go back to that first concept that we described of you have a magnet sitting on a table and a wire next to it. And if we run electricity through that wire, we can push that magnet just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we go one step further and add a second wire that's just a little bit further away, and then as the magnet, if we time it right, we run electricity through the first one, the magnet starts moving, the permanent magnet that's laying on the table starts sliding, and then we immediately fire the next one, shut off the first one. The next wire is now attracting the magnet and pulling it.
So it's a handoff.
It's a handoff.
Okay.
Beautifully said. Well, in your case, if we only get about 1 inch of travel, then we need 12 wires, and we need to fire them at the right time. And they will work together in a coordinated fashion to keep accelerating the magnet that's laying on the table.
Beautiful description, Jeremy. Well done. That was great.
Okay. And that won't kill the guy.
Not a magnet on a table. No.
I just want that scoundrel running the other way and thinking twice.
Maybe you hit him in the eye and make him think twice.
Okay, cool.
So just describe what Jeremy just described. Just like
a series of coordinated handoffs, perfectly timed, to repeat basically this process a dozen times to multiply 1 inch out to 12 inches.
And how many circuits are there?
Well, there'd have to be 12 circuits because one circuit would fire everything at the same time. Wait, no, there'd have to be 24 circuits because we're handing off all the way down. And they'd have to alternate. Alternating current, is that AC?
Interesting.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah, it's not alternating current in this particular description. Basically, they would be... Okay, so it depends on how we want to run this circuit. Because we can do it in 2 ways. Is it entertaining
for you watching someone who doesn't know anything about this but did go to college and barely pass try to process the things you know like the back of your hand?
This is like fantastic for me. I love having this conversation.
Okay.
I guess 24. We all had a nice little laugh. What is it? How do I figure this out? How do I answer your question?
I think we should first simplify the explanation by making one tiny adjustment. Before I said you would push with one and pull with the next.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a better way to think of it is just they're all pulling, but just pulling at the right time, right? So the first one, we turn on the first one, it pushes. And when the magnet slides past the next wire, just barely, the next one turns on and it pushes. And then the next one turns on and it pushes. And, we're building up some momentum. It's moving in the direction that we want to go.
So this isn't steady. This is accelerating. And is it important that each previous one turns off after the handoff?
Yes, because you want to save power, but also because, mostly because you want to save power in this case. Yeah.
All right.
It doesn't make sense to turn them all on and leave them all on. You would just want to.
Can I modify the description a little bit, Jeremy?
Sure.
So let's say you have the 12-inch long thing of 12 different coils.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of pushing, let's pull it into the first coil.
Okay.
Okay. Then how do we keep it going? What do you have to do to keep it going?
So as soon as we exert that force on it, this thing is moving down some kind of rail in this scenario, right? Like it's not just floating in space controlled by magnets.
That works, yeah.
We've affixed it to a little piece of metal and it's sliding down a track.
Sure.
Okay, let's say that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving down the track.
Or a tube with the coils on the outside of the tube.
Ooh, fun. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's visualize that. I can do that. So we have a little bit of momentum going,
Mm-hmm.
but I know from driving my truck that the first mile an hour is the hardest mile an hour. Going from nothing to 1 seems to take more effort from my engine
Mm-hmm.
to get moving. I would assume it's the same here. The first bit of motion is the hardest, the most expensive.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're not going to get to full speed from 1. This isn't just a matter of how do we get it 12 inches. It's also a matter that there's an opportunity for compounding acceleration on a clean vector. And all this energy is moving in one direction here.
Okay.
Or we're channeling it to one direction, right? Because of the rail or the tube. I'm sorry. So I think the timing of the handoff is the important thing here, that we don't waste any of the energy and velocity we've gained from our first leg of the relay. That's the wrong word. We just want the handoff to be clean.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if you turn on the second coil too soon?
Well, I think Destin was trying to tee you up when he switched it around and said pull instead of push, because what happens if you leave the coil on? Let's answer that question before we move forward.
If we leave the previous coil on and we're pulling, I don't know. I don't understand. It feels like nothing because it's not there anymore. Why would it?
Okay. Well,
how would it
I'll
affect
help you with that
anything?
part.
Okay.
So basically, we're attracting the little slug, if you will. We'll just call it our projectile. We're attracting the projectile into the coil, and if we leave the coil turned on, it'll just stop. It's now reached its neutral place where it's fully connected, like two magnets, north and south poles slapping together. It'll stop inside of that first coil and stop moving.
Unless the next one's much more powerful, which would be inefficient and stupid.
Extremely inefficient, yes.
Because then we're using the machine we're building to defeat the machine we're building.
Yeah.
So okay, sure, that makes sense.
Sure,
so we're assuming
that makes sense, or sure?
It does make sense. So we're assuming 12 equally powered circuits, and they're all on the same power source. I assume we don't need 12 power sources, right?
No, just 12 switches in this case. Yeah.
Okay, and yeah. So the only thing we want on is where the slug is right now.
Yeah, I would say we want to time each coil so that we get optimal motion through the system. So in that case, when the slug is at just the right distance that we're going to get optimal pull, we turn it on, we start pulling as it starts to approach the center where we're losing our mechanical advantage, if you will. We turn it off and it'll keep sliding, and the next one comes on, it starts pulling, and then as it starts to run out of its best pulling force, we turn that one off, the next one turns on, and we do that in order.
How smooth could you, Jeremy Fielding, in your workshop make that acceleration?
If I was using a computer program, I could make it pretty much flawless. If I was using like mechanical switches, it'd be really hard. To get the timing right would be really sloppy.
So it'd be like herky-jerky acceleration in your car with a new driver learning stick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so what Jeremy said is you turn the first coil on before the slug's in the coil, right?
Yeah.
And it pulls it into the coil. And at some point, what Jeremy said is if you leave the coil on, it's going to decelerate because it's magnetized to be there. That's its happy spot. Jeremy said, well, once it's accelerating, right before it starts to decelerate and like get comfortable in that coil, that's when you turn it off.
Is this how a railgun works?
No, just...
No,
It's not.
The handoff is what's intriguing me.
There is no handoff on a railgun. That's a different thing. That's a railgun.
That's what we were talking about the other night. That diagram.
A railgun uses the projectile as part of the circuit.
Yes, that's right.
It's a very different
That's
thing.
right. So that you can use vacuum. Compression of hydrogen.
Yeah, you're confounding some things. So if I turn the circuit on and I get the slug into that coil and it's accelerating to go into it, at some point it's going to start to decelerate because it wants to stay at home in that first coil, right?
Yes.
So that's when we cut it off before it starts to slow down in there, right?
So we're actually cutting it off while it's still in. We're turning off the coil it's in while it's still in the coil it's in. And the next coil is kind of grabbing it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to think about it like there's an effective range for the magnet, but whenever the slug is in the very center of the coil, that's the neutral spot, the place where it's trying to stop. So it's being drawn in and it will stop in the middle. we're just taking advantage of the fact that we moved it briefly. So we turn it on, it starts moving, we turn it off, it's sliding. The next one turns on to continue the pulling motion. But just like permanent magnets, if you try to bring them close together, you start to get an attractive force and they want to snap together. But once they snap, that's it. There's no more energy in the system. It's done.
Okay.
And so that's what's happening here is if you leave the coil on, you don't run out of energy per se, because if you're thinking about the electrical energy, but the magnetic force, once they are lined up, then they're happy. They're snapped together like North and South Pole. They don't want to keep moving. So it's like you got to give that kid a little shove and then you got to get out of the way. But if you try to, if you start pulling the kid, eventually he's going to run into you and then now you're hugging. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. But the idea is you tug on the kid, you let go, and the next person will tug and everybody's giving a little pull. But eventually you got to get out of the way or you're going to stop the motion that you started to create.
Somebody gave me a hug once. I can picture it kind of. I still remember that day. Okay. So then to stop it, I mean, we're calling this a linear motor, Destin. Was that your term?
Yeah. Yes. It's a linear motor.
All right. So this is a linear motor with a boxing glove attached to the end. Mm-hmm. So it's fired out to the end. To stop it, I guess we could.
We're still on think smaller chunks. You're thinking big picture.
So this isn't it? The 12, there's more?
We're thinking about the little coils. That's what we're thinking about. You got 12 coils, right?
Yeah.
And as it goes into the first one, we cut it off at the right time. And then we cut on the second one.
Sure. Yeah.
So how many circuits do you need for that? How many circuits do you need in order to make this thing go the full 12 inches?
Okay. Well, your intuition was right, Jeremy. I was picturing the push followed by the catch as being 2. So I no longer think it's 24. What? Can you do it with 1 and switches?
You're not. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. I wasn't entirely sure how Destin was trying to phrase the question in terms of, I was thinking of 12 circuits in the sense of you've got 12 coils that need to each be energized at some point.
Which was my initial guess.
Yeah, but if you separate the power source and you just say and you just count each one as what? Yeah, no matter how you describe it, I would consider it to be 12 circuits that need to be engaged one at the right time, and you've got to switch for each one.
So then, how do you?
So let me ask you this: what if you were to do it with 6 circuits? Excuse me, 2 circuits. What if you were to do it with 2 circuits?
Okay. Yeah.
You see where I'm going?
Yeah. Now I know where you're going.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to
see if I'm anticipating this right. So with 2 circuits, you would be turning on 6 coils alternating, and then you'd be turning on the other 6, but it wouldn't matter because you'd be out of, as Jeremy calls it, the effective range of the previous coil you've already graduated from.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's actually much closer to how, so very good. It's much closer to how a typical electric motor would work. It'd be, well, we'll get to that.
I now understand the riddle you were setting up. I know you really well, and you were doing your furrowed eyes that meant, no, I have a thing here, but we're not getting the thing. Now I know what the thing was, and I really liked it. Thank you for sticking with that line of thought. I understand it better now. You're a good teacher.
Well, let me understand why 2 circuits would work. Would you please explain the 2 circuits with me in one continuous thought?
It made sense to you, what I said, right, mm-hmm. Jeremy? Okay. Let me take another run at it here. We got 12 of these things in a row. The effective range of each of these is just a little bit more than its own coil. So if we put on circuit, let's call one circuit A, one circuit B. On circuit A, we put coil 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. On circuit B, we put, of course, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We engage by activating circuit A. So right now, 1 and 3 are on, but it doesn't matter with that 3 is on because that isn't where the slug is. It's irrelevant. As we get to whatever the tipping point is, the critical mass point with coil 1 on circuit A, we disengage circuit A, turning off coil 1, as we simultaneously engage circuit B, turning on coil 2 and coil 4. But that's irrelevant because we're not in the effective range of coil 4. As we get to the critical mass tipping point in coil 2, we're going to turn off circuit B simultaneously with turning back on circuit A, and that is going to get us just out of the range. I think we need 3. I think we might need 3 depending on what kind of speed we need to escape the previous coil.
Don't overthink it. Just walk me through the end of the thing. Keep going. So then you go.
We're just going to keep doing that. Just A, B, A, B, A, B. And my hope is without knowing, without running a little test with the magnet you showed me in your old magnet video, or without some iron filings, we're going to hope that the effective range of each of these coils is narrow enough that this handoff can work with just 2 circuits.
Why do you need to hope? You've designed a system. You make it exactly the size you want.
I need to hope because of my lack of education or knowledge about how to do this.
You have full control over the magnetic force. You by controlling how much current you have flowing, you decide how powerful the magnet is. You decide what the voltage is by how many coils you have. So you have a lot of options in the control of the electric motor. And so to answer that question, it's just a matter of design. That part is easy.
Okay, so we're about to have some fun. Those darn robbers, they come again.
Okay.
It's Joe Pesci and the tall guy, and they're always trying to get in there. And my old solenoid power wanted punching red boxing glove. It didn't do anything to him. Well, now this thing fires and it gets him right in the noggin, but it's still not quite hard enough. I really didn't want to use a third circuit, but what I'm discovering is that I'm still getting a little bit of drag and losing efficiency, because when I flip from circuit A to circuit B, I'm losing progression down my linear motor. So the next day, I'm Macaulay Culkin in this example.
Okay.
I go back and I redesign it, but with a circuit C as well, because my theory is I'm still getting a little bit of drag when I flip between the circuits from the previous coil we were in.
Okay.
So now circuit A is 1, 3, or 1, 4, and so on.
Okay.
2, 5, and so on. 3, 6, and so on. Now I test it out by firing it against my hand, and it hurts a little more, because what I've discovered is that I fire, I turn off circuit A as I turn on circuit B as we leave coil 1 into coil 2. Then as we reach the tipping point in coil 2, I turn off circuit B, leaving off circuit A, and now I turn on circuit C. I don't get any drag from coil 1 now, which is totally off.
Okay.
And I grab it with circuit C, and now I'm back to repeat all the way up to 12, and I notice pop. I get more punch. Am I optimizing here? That's what I'm trying to explore.
Well, you're stumbling onto something really interesting, but
Emphasis on stumbling.
yeah, I say that because you're not exactly right in what you're describing, but you're getting really close to something that is true, which is what three-phase power is. You know, when you have a three-phase motor, it's essentially 3 different circuits that are going on and off at about 120 degrees apart electrically. So let's just say over the same amount of time, they're each on for roughly 1/3 of the time. And they're coming on and off in the order that you're describing.
Okay.
Right? But with alternating current, it's not purely on and off. It's the voltage is sweeping up, it gets to its max, and then it's sweeping down and alternating back and forth. So if you think about it as...
So it's a wave, not a 1 and a 0.
Yes. So using your description, this is what I meant by you're stumbling into something which is actually true and very efficient, 3-phase. And that is, if you have coil A at the peak of its circuit and coil B is in the middle of its circuit, coil C is at the bottom, they're all electrically 1/3 of a wave apart.
Okay.
You will get optimal power throughout your system.
Okay.
And most industrial machines run on three-phase power because of that.
So the mistake in my conceiving of it was imagining that we had a hard on or hard off switch one way or the other, when the reality is these are waves with an ebb and flow in intensity.
You weren't wrong about that, because in our initial description, it was more of a DC circuit, just on and off, and that's fine. But what
I still don't get I suggested earlier that this is alternating current, and we all had a good laugh about it, but I don't understand why I was wrong. And I'm not offended that we had a good laugh about it. I guess I still don't get what you mean by AC.
Okay, so HC is alternating current, which is exactly what we were just describing. The current is oscillating between fully on and fully off, right? If it's 120 volts, which is standard here in the United States, and other countries, they use different voltages, but it'll swing up to 120 volts, gradually come down to 0, and then actually go negative 120 volts. It's just the polarity is the other direction. You don't have to worry about negative, positive here. And then it comes back up. So that's what alternating current is. DC current is just the electricity is only flowing in one direction, and it's just on, and it stays at whatever the level is. If it's 120 volts DC, it's just flat, 120 volts. There's no oscillating. There's no moving up and down.
Which one kills you better?
Well, that's a complicated question.
Do they kill you different?
Yeah, there's so many avenues there. It's like, it's a combination of both the voltage and the current flowing through your body. And so, depending upon the situation, either one of them could kill you equally dead.
Okay, I would hate that. Not how I want to go.
Yeah. So in our initial analogy, we were describing, at least in my mind, we were describing DC switches that we were just flipping on and off to get a nice little tug. And most solenoids are DC, although they work on AC as well. But when we switched mentally, when we went to three-phase, which is what you were getting... Okay, sorry, let me back up. When you said you would have 3 circuits and you would try to time them, if we were doing that with DC, I don't think that would work very well. I think your first circuit was smarter. Just A, B, just alternate.
Okay.
But if you're going to go to 3, AC shines much more powerfully here. We've got, you got that optimal curve of one just coming on as the other one's just going off. And
so they crossfade.
Yes. And you were hinting at it earlier when you said it's a nice handoff that's timed perfectly. Three-phase AC current will give you that perfect handoff. As long as they're spaced equally, one would just barely be turning on while the other's turning off. And that third one would just be coming up, and the timing is...
And that timing's a matter of your engineering.
Yes, you can control...
So you're tuning those wavelengths.
What the oscillation is and how frequently they happen, yeah.
Okay. Destin, why in old cars, like the 1974 Mercury Comet, where I had to change out the solenoid, when it started to go bad, I knew something was going bad, because I would drive to school in high school and I'd put the blinker on, and it was a pretty typical BPM, maybe cut time on a BPM. And so songs would come on the radio and I'd be like, oh, look, it's synced up to the blinker. I remember laughing about this with my mom and with my siblings. And then after a while, I noticed it wasn't holding time anymore. It just wouldn't click, 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 click. It would be click, 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 click. It became chaotic. And in all my newer cars, the blinker click is absolutely steady. Why? Why did that deterioration happen?
The older cars had the circuit would heat up. And as the circuit would heat up, you would heat up a bimetallic strip. And so the circuit would be made. And then when you put current through there, it would warm up and pull the circuit away, and then it would cool off, kind of like a tattoo gun. And it would come on and off and on and off. And that time between the clicks, as I understand it, was a function of the current and the reaction time of that thermal mass of the system. That's my understanding. The newer stuff's all solid state electronics. But that's my understanding of how that worked.
So when I first got in the car and turned it on, it was probably more likely to be steady. And then as it warmed up a little bit?
No, the circuit itself is almost like a thermal relay is what we would call that. That's my understanding of how they worked. I don't really know.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they do seem steadier now.
Yeah.
And that's because of something you called solid state?
Transistors. Yeah, transistors now and timers, 555 timers and stuff like that. I don't know if they use 555s, but timers.
Some kind of timer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've done solenoids.
Mm-hmm.
Then we did the linear motor. So now we're all the way to the question we've been working on the whole time, and I think we're ready to have it make sense. I think the groundwork is laid. So what is an electromotor then?
Well, let me ask one thing first. So you built this linear motor out of two circuits, we're saying? Two circuits?
Two circuits, yeah.
Two circuits, right? Circuits A and circuit B, as you described it. Can you think of a way to use the position of the slug as it's flying through this tube as a way to control those circuits?
Yes. I mean, couldn't you just complete the circuit with the slug as it passes through if it was made of a conductive material?
I like it. Absolutely, you could.
Yeah, so then the position of the slug would affect. So you just made the whole system. You just applied power to it, and it just. You're saying you applied power to it, and it could just shoot out the end of the tube.
That'd be the idea.
That would certainly be the simplest possible way to do it. Absolutely, I would use, for several reasons, I would use some type of sensor that would just detect that a piece of metal was there. There are lots of sensors, Hall effect sensors and other types of sensors that can detect when something metal is nearby. And so if you had the sensor in the right place, as it goes by the sensor, it would turn on the circuit. Goes by the next sensor, turn on the circuit. Would be a more sophisticated, but the way an electrician would go about doing it, unless there was another reason you wanted to actually run the current through the device. But I do like the idea that the slug itself, is part of the circuit. That would certainly work.
So my question on that, because we're getting into the part where I'm learning all this stuff, is that how motors work?
Okay. So I want to answer one other question you brought up before we get into the rotary motor, which is, how do you stop the slug? You mentioned earlier that you wanted to stop it or maybe even put it in reverse. What would you do?
Yeah, because I don't want to shoot. It's like an electrical piston is what I'm imagining. I want the boxing glove and I want to be able to reload it.
Okay.
So my question, what I was driving at when I understood this less was, can we stop that electronically or do we need to stop that mechanically, which is like a rubber stopper or something? And then how do we reload it?
I think you're capable of answering that question now.
Okay. Well, if we made the final coil a bigger stack, so it would give it both more acceleration at the end, or we could use it as an electronic brake if it had the necessary capacity to stop. So we could make the punch get delivered at cylinder 11 and make the brake cylinder 12 if you held my hand and walked me through how we did it and we made a bigger coil.
All right. I just want to push this one step further because this is really good. What happens when you flip the electricity flowing through the wire?
We go from push to pull.
So then does that give you any ideas?
Well, we don't have any gears. So, I mean, in my brain, it makes me feel like we would just strip everything out and ruin it, but we don't have gears. So I suppose we just flip the circuit, right? Because we have on push, off push, on pull, off pull, right? You said that was a thing?
We could do it that way, yes. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, but that's solenoid thinking.
Right, yeah.
Okay. I guess if you didn't think it would wreck all the mechanical parts of what you built, you could just throw it in reverse, right? Because there's no transmission.
Yeah.
To blow the thing out with.
Absolutely. If you throw it in reverse, it'd be like putting on the brakes. It'd be reverse acceleration or deceleration, but it'd be acceleration in the opposite direction. You'd slow it down.
So I could make this thing just rabbit punch the dude. I mean, I just repeated that process a lot, we could just thump, 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 like a whole bunch of times until it broke.
Yeah.
But I want it to be whimsical. I don't want to kill these people.
I just want these rascals to learn a lesson. Is this the best way to do that?
It's a very interesting approach, at least. I don't know. But I love the idea that we can oscillate this and control it all electrically. That's the beauty of this system. And I think that's the fascinating part about electric motors, the rotary motor, which is the next thing we want to talk about. And that is that this circuit is continuous. So the way I like to think about converting this from linear to rotary motion is if you take that magnet in the middle and you just put it on let's just say a vertical shaft, like taking a needle bobbin or something, just cylindrical thing, put it on a shaft and attach a magnet to it. And if I hold a magnet outside of it and move it around, the magnet on the inside will follow it. Can you see that? The
Sure.
shaft on the inside that's got a magnet hanging on it, it's going to follow this magnet that I'm moving. Well, but that's a terrible motor if you have to move the magnet physically, right? Like you don't want to have to do that. You want to flip a switch and the thing just runs. So if we can make this magnet on the outside electrical, which is what we did with the linear motor, we're turning the circuits on and off at the right time. We would do the same thing with the rotary motor. We would have circuits in a circle around this magnet in the middle.
Which way do the coils face? In this example, and you're kind of doing it with your hands, so I'm trying to visualize.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
All right, so
reminding me.
this is a vertical cylinder that we're talking about at this point, like a can
Okay,
of
yeah.
soup just sitting on a table, let's say. And you're talking about some kind of spindle or something that's in the middle
Yes.
of that?
So, being held in place with bearings.
So let's imagine we just took a can of soup and a great big framing nail and we just pounded it right through the middle of the can of soup. So it's now into the void of the middle of the cylinder, right in the middle.
I love it. That's a great, yes.
Okay. So then you're saying we're going to surround that. So inside the soup can,
Mhm.
around the outer walls of the inside of the soup can, we're packing that full of coils.
Yes.
Okay. And so,
We could also do it with permanent magnets, but we'll come back to that.
okay.
Yeah.
And those coils then in a soup can that's standing on end with a nail driven through it, a spindle in the middle, these coils are all vertical, like the coils are moving up the soup can.
Sort of. The side of the coil is facing the center. So it's coiled in a, the center of the coil, if it was a perfect circle, will be pointed straight to the center of the can.
Okay. So they're laying on their sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like a Pringles chip almost, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good visual, I think. It sort of looks like a Pringles chip, and the face of the Pringle is facing the center of the can, and each one is facing towards the center, so that just one of its magnetic fields is pointed towards the center.
Oh. Okay. Okay. That makes perfect sense. We would only want one pointed toward it because the idea is to create.
Yeah, you want a North Pole and a South Pole at exactly the place you want it.
We want to spin that sucker. We want.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we still doing handoffs from one to the next?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. How fast can we make the handoffs go?
As fast as you want.
I want them to go fast.
Well, this is a matter of just frequency or hertz. It's the speed at which we turn those different circuits on and off. And if we keep increasing that speed, I mean, you have to build up a little bit of speed at first, but once you get it moving, you fire it at whatever rate that you want.
Do you have to create that initial surge with some other power source or mechanical function? Or are you just saying it takes a minute to get it spun up using?
It's a little bit of both, actually. What's happening is it's just the coil will naturally draw more current from the wall. And this part gets much more complicated. But the short answer is when you turn on a motor, it draws like 6 times as much electricity as it will normally draw in that amount of time while the motor is running.
This is what happens when your AC compressor turns on in the summer and your lights all dim for a split second.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Exactly. It's under full load now because that mechanical resistance is being pushed back through the circuit, actually. And so your house is reacting to that electricity, trying to be the act of converting the electricity into mechanical motion actually pushes back and it resists moving. And that resistance is what makes all your lights dim and everything like that, because
Resistance.
your motor will basically draw more electricity until it has enough to get it to spin, and then the current will go down.
Is that Lenz's law or Lorenz's law? What's that?
Yes.
Which one? I don't know which one.
Lenz's law.
L-E-N-Z.
Yes.
L-E-N-Z?
Mm-hmm.
Lenz's law. And so the growth or contraction of an electromagnetic field in the presence of a coil creates current. And
Yes.
that's what's happening. The fact that we're starting up the magnetic field and we're making it bigger, that's causing a problem. Is it trying to backflow or something like that? Is that
Yes, because once you do that, it's almost like the magnetic field is resisting change. It doesn't want to change its current state. And
I can relate.
Yeah, so it's just like inertia. When an object that's not moving wants to stay not moving, it's the same idea that whatever its current state is, it wants to stay like that. And when you start to push against it, there's resistance at first, and then it finally starts moving. One of my favorite examples of this is if you take a copper tube and you drop a magnet inside of it, it will just gently float down the copper tube very slowly. If you drop it outside the tube, it just falls, at normal
38
gravity
feet per
speed.
second squared.
If you dropped it inside of a PVC pipe, let's just say of the same diameter, it still drop at the speed of gravity.
Sure.
There's no resistance of air or anything like that. What's happening is the copper tube is becoming a magnet, and it's actually resisting the movement of the magnet that's falling inside. And so you get the copper tube is pushing up while the magnet is falling down, and you get this really slow descent. It's a very popular physics demonstration that
Didn't know that. I will be trying it.
I suggest everyone listening, just take a minute to go to your local hardware store or whatever, buy a 2-foot piece of copper tube and drop a magnet inside, and you will be mesmerized for at least 20 minutes, and then maybe you'll get bored. But it's worth the time to take a minute to do that.
a real strong, what do you call them, rare earth magnet, right?
Yeah, or like a little neodymium magnet would be good if you have the little silver ones. But pretty much any magnet would work as long as the diameters are relatively close so that the magnetic field is close.
Is this why sound engineers in Hollywood, when they have like some kind of, the bad guy makes a big like, city-destroying laser device or time travel device, is this why they imagine that the startup sound should always be vroom, 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 vroom? I mean, it's not like a propeller. It's like this electrical sound that they make in all these movies that sounds like a thing spinning up. I mean, it's ambiguous. So you just know mentally, the same way clinking sounds means I'm aggressive with my gun now. Listen, it clinked a lot. I mean it. So vum, 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 vum sound means some big electromotor is now turning on. I mean, it sounds like that's what they're trying to
emulate. Maybe.
Emulate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting to me about this. Okay. Well, one, I'm understanding it. I was at 0 before this, and now I'm at whatever is just above 0. It is making much more sense to me.
Okay.
At the most basic level. This was magic to me an hour ago. It's no longer magic. Still cool though. Maybe cooler yet. But what's interesting is we started down at the level of not even solenoids. We started at the level of there are magnets, and magnetism is a thing. And just with the last leap we made, we jumped all the way up to when the AC compressor turns on, the lights in your house dim. I can imagine some sort of natural catastrophe where all of the hot air from a forest fire, the wind changes and the hot air blows over a town in peril, and simultaneously every AC unit activates in the whole town. Like, okay, well now we're talking about the next level out of a major spin up, power surge, all of that. I don't want to move inertia having to be overcome at once, that ton of load. But it's all the same stuff. It just keeps
absolutely
scaling all the way from, hey, Matt, there are magnets. Neat. To this scenario we're talking about where you've got a failure of the power grid. Right?
That's
It's
why
all
they
just
have
the same
those
elements.
selective outages, right? And like they'd rather turn off just a few people to lower the demand than have the whole system crash. Like, absolutely.
Did we get to the stuff you wanted to learn, or have I cheated you of that by keeping us in the shallow water for too long?
I think it's okay. We did not get to where I wanted to go, but
We'll just do it real quick. We got him here.
Just do it.
All right. Stepper motors.
Okay.
It's my understanding is the Pringles that we're arranging around the motors, we're going to do it in clever ways, and there's just a lot more Pringles. Is that right?
Yeah. So you can shape the magnetic field. That's what you were talking about before with the company using the lasers to shape the magnetic field. But we can also shape the iron core itself to focus the magnetic field where we want it. Stepper motors have little grooves cut into them so that you have little iron protrusions that stick out like teeth all the way around the motor. And those little teeth are where the magnetic field is concentrated. So if you, just like we were describing before, you put the electricity on the right coil at the right time, those teeth in this case will try to line up. So we have the rotor on the inside that can spin. It also has little teeth on it. And the stator on the outside, stationary, the stator part on the outside has little teeth. If you run electricity through the system here, turn this into a magnet, the teeth will do like this and try to line up. And then you energize the next one.
You're holding your fingers out right now.
Thank you.
Like widely, and you're pointing all the fingers on your right hand to all the fingers on your left hand to communicate that when they line up like that.
That would be a step on a stepper motor. So essentially, if you want to move from one coil to the next, you would turn off one and turn on the next, and then you get another step, and then you get another step.
So now you're clicking your fingers on your right hand and your left hand across each other like the gears on a clock or something.
Gears is a fantastic analogy, actually. I will use that next time. Yes, but gear teeth meshing together, except they're electrical gears and that you can turn the individual teeth on and off, so to speak. But there are actually many of them connected together. So going back to our AC current analogy where you had 1, 4, and so on, all energized at the same time, the same thing's happening with the stepper motor. You're actually energizing multiple coils spread around the motor, but they're all just a little bit out of alignment with their next tooth. Turning that coil on makes the teeth line up, and you get a nice hard stop at each position.
So going back to the linear motor discussion where we had 12 circuits. Okay, so we have a 12-inch long linear motor with 12 different circuits. If we were to use Matt's second analogy, and let's say you had 3 circuits in every fourth one, are you saying that we could fire circuit A, and then our slug would go into coil A?
Yes.
Then we turn off A and turn on B, the slug would go into coil B.
Absolutely.
If we leave coil B on and then turn on C, it would go halfway between B and C. Is that what you're saying?
So that's how you're getting into microstepping, which is a thing where you can energize the coils at different amounts. So we can run, the more current you run through the coil, the stronger it is. So if I want the next one to be a lot stronger than the previous one, it just needs more current than the previous one. But if you want it to stop in between, you actually need to turn off the one before just a little bit so that it can move. And then once it starts moving, you can turn them both on and it'll stop in the middle and it's got an equal tug. But remember, because the distance matters, if you leave the first one on while it's still in there, that one is actually stronger than the next one and it won't quite move over to the next coil.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just learned something pretty big there. So a stepper motor is like Matt's ABC circuit example on the linear motor where you're just going between A, B, C, A, B, C. And then that would give you that amount of resolution. So, okay, that makes sense to me. So microstepping, didn't know that term. That is, I can do A and B, but I have to first release A little bit in order to get it moving, and then I can lock it wherever I want to once I have that. Is that true?
Yeah.
So there's a temporal component, a time component to microstepping, whereas just normal stepping, it's just which circuit is on.
And even one step further, you can do steps in between that as well. Like you can make the first coil just 10% on and the second coil 90% on. And so you can get a really high resolution by adjusting how strong each coil is.
So that's a stepper and a microstepper. Is there another word for that third thing you just described, or is that just...
That's just another level of microstepping.
Didn't know that. Okay.
What would be the application for that?
Typically, you want a stepper motor when you need to very accurately position the shaft. So if you want the motor to rotate exactly 18 degrees and not just keep spinning, you would use something like a stepper motor.
So how many wires does a stepper motor have?
Typically 4, although you can get some with 6 and 8, and they're different configurations.
And that's a function of how many coils there are on the motor?
They're basically 2 sets. There's an A and a B with a negative and a positive.
Okay.
And so each one, that's how you end up with 4 wires.
Okay. So a DC motor is going to have 2 wires on it.
Yes.
And that's going to be what we were describing earlier with we turn on. Well, the reason it only has 2 wires is we do have 2 sets of circuits, but as the shaft rotates, it's switching back and forth. Is that a good way of saying it?
This is so good. Okay. So there's what you're describing is called the commutator. That's the part that's switching which circuit is on and off while the motor is spinning. And it's happening mechanically, like what you were describing about if you use the slug itself for the current to flow. It's a very similar idea. There's a commutator at the end with little metal tabs on it that's connected to each of the different coils. It's way more than 2 coils. It's a bunch of coils. And so once the motor starts moving, the 2
brushes? Are they brushes?
Yes, the 2
that was
brushes.
my question.
Yeah, the 2 brushes are attached to this spinning commutator, which has all the little tabs on it. Once it starts moving, it stops being connected to the circuit that was lined up with it and is now connected to the next circuit. And so all these circuits are very close together, but just has a little sliver of material that doesn't conduct electricity between each one. And so they slide underneath these brushes. That's where the term comes from. And if you have the, sorry, I'm doing that thing with my hands again. So if you have the rotor in the middle with the commutator and it's spinning, it naturally turns the circuits on and off just by spinning because it's moving the connection away, and the next one is now in position to touch the brushes. So it looks like when you put power on the motor, it's always positive on the top and negative on the bottom, but the coils themselves can be oriented in whatever direction you want and just have the wires in the right place. So I can make it so that when it's touching this one, this coil has a north pole in one orientation and south in the other. The next coil will be just shifted from that. It'll be flipped. So you have that push-pull action, and it naturally flows with the speed of the motor. The circuits go on and off as fast as the motor is spinning.
So I'm imagining a clock.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm imagining the hands on the clock are facing away from each other.
Okay.
So it looks like the hands on the clock are a perfect line. So it'd be like 6 and 12, up and down.
Yep.
As I rotate both of the hands on the clock together, like one line, then I go where one of them's pointing to 1 and one of them's pointing to 7.
Okay.
So that would be a different circuit.
Absolutely.
And then
yes.
when I go further and I go to 2 and 8, that's the original circuit. And so I can flip back and forth between them. Is that right?
Let me flip your analogy. I like that.
Okay.
The whole face of the clock is rotating. And 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock are on the same circuit. Or sorry, 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock are on the same circuit.
All
1
right.
o'clock and 7 o'clock are the negative and positive of the next circuit. And you follow that analogy there? So, and
Yes.
when you get around
each
to
hand is a negative and positive.
yes. And so if the clock face is rotating, the brushes are always at 12 and 6. The face of the clock is rotating, and now you've connected 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and then you've connected,
Yes.
10 o'clock and 4 o'clock and so on. And once that circuit is energized, now the magnets are lined up just the right way so that you get a little kick, and then the next one gets connected.
That's called a brushed DC motor, right?
Yes, that's a brushed DC motor.
Okay. What is a brushless DC motor?
A brushless DC motor inverts that. So now you put the permanent magnets on the inside, on the spinning part, so that you don't need to connect any electricity to it, and therefore you don't need brushes. They're just permanent magnets. And now you put your stator coils on the outside, You energize those, the permanent magnets will try to line up with your stator coils, and you get a brushless DC motor.
But don't you have to switch the coils on and off and on and off?
You do. Brushless DC motors are actually AC motors. I don't know why they call them DC motors. That's a whole different thing, but it's actually alternating current, and that gets more technical how that terminology came about.
Okay, so the stepper motor is the same thing, kinda, but you got all these coils on the outside, and you're just energizing different ones at different times, and that's ordering things. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's this one thing that I don't understand at all. Servo motors. What on earth is a servo motor? And can you explain it in the 12-inch punch glove analogy, the tube with the coils?
Well, I think it's actually simpler than that. It's a servo motor is a brushless DC motor that has an encoder attached to it so that we can keep track of the position of the shaft.
Okay. Say it all again.
Okay. Yeah. So a a servo motor has usually they can be done in a couple of different ways, but usually you have the permanent magnets on the inside. They can't be
the inside of what? All right. Let's go back to my can of soup.
Yeah. On the spinning part. So the nail in the middle.
Okay.
The part that's rotating, connected to the shaft.
The magnets are on the nail.
Yeah, the part where we're trying to get the power out of it, the mechanical power.
Okay.
The outside stays still. That's where we're going to put all our wires and all of our coils. And this will spin if you put the power on the right circuit at the right time. It's why you need a special controller. You can't just connect it to DC and expect it to do something. It won't do anything. You need a special controller that knows when to turn each coil on and off. So we have this, we're just going to call it our magic box, which is switching the coils on and off. There are 3 circuits. There's an A, B, and a C, very much like the 3-phase that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
There are 3 circuits. They're spaced out evenly around the outside. And our magic box turns the right one on at the right time. And it makes the magnet on the inside move. But what makes it a servo motor is because it also has an encoder attached to it, which is a totally separate electrical device. Yeah, it has feedback. And that feedback is what it has they work in a lot of different ways, but some of them have a little light that shines through a disc. And so when it goes through the clear part, the light passes through and it gets a signal like, okay, lights on, then lights off, lights on, lights off. And so it's counting how many times that happens, and it knows how far the shaft has rotated. We're just making this up now, but if there are 100 slots, then there are 100 increments, and it can count and keep track of how many increments have gone by. Your controller, our magic box, is keeping track of all of this, is keeping track of how many times it's moved around, how many slots have gone by. Because of that, a servo motor can be controlled very precisely. Just like the stepper motor, we can tell it to stop after 100 slots go by or after 500 slots go by, whatever, because our computer is keeping track of all of that.
Why would you want a servo motor?
All sorts of reasons. The first example that comes to mind for me, at least the one I use it most often for, is any type of CNC machine or anytime you want to move something to a very specific spot and move it back. So robotics is a great example. I want to move an arm and it's got all these different joints. I need them all to move exactly the right amount at the right time. If you connect them all together, then you can tell the computer, send this one to this position, send number 2 servo motor to this position, and so on. And that's how you can get the hand in the right position. But really, each one is just moving so many degrees. You just need somebody, in this case, our magic box, is keeping track of where everybody should be and when they should move. And we turn them on and off at the right time. But you can also use this to control things like acceleration or speed. Or how fast is the speed up? How fast, on and on.
You see why I was not comfortable explaining this?
Mm-hmm. I'm no longer good. How do we get the power back to the tin can?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about an electro motor. I don't care if we're talking brushless, whatever, the station.
With the teeth, yeah.
Yep, or servo motor. Just expand on my analogy of the tin can with the nail on it. I understand how it's spinning. I understand why it stays spinning. How do we get the energy out of that to do the things we want it to do? How do we get the movement out of the tin can to make it do things?
Well, in this case, we are moving the nail. So if we put electricity on one of those coils on the wall of our can, and our nail has a magnet that's glued to it, we'll just say one magnet hot glued to the nail.
Great.
And then we turn on one of the coils. That nail is going to spin until those magnets are lined up. Our electromagnet is lined up with the permanent magnet, and then they're happy because now North Pole is facing South Pole and they stop moving.
Okay.
But if we turn that one off and turn the next one on, it'll move to the next coil. And then you turn that one off and turn the next one on, it'll move to the next coil. And all along the way, as long as we're using that magnetic force to spin the nail, anything attached to that nail would also spin. So if we attach a gear to the outside of that piece of the nail that's sticking out of the can, we can make the gear turn. And now you've got a mechanical device that can make things move.
Yeah, you can just gear it out to do anything.
Yeah, the key is just that, you reduce friction by adding bearings to hold the nail in the center, but it's still free to spin. And then it's very easy to get it to transfer that magnetic force into mechanical motion.
Okay. The last three examples are harder for me to wrap my brain around. I'm not understanding the advantage of a brushed motor or quite the application, but I feel I am understanding the basic principles of how we get it to do motory things and how we get the motion out of it to, from there I can go back to 19th century steampunk clockwork. From there I can game it out in my head. This gear connects to this gear is bigger, this one's smaller. That's simpler and easier for a layman to visualize, I think.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting question about why brushed versus brushless. There's several really technical reasons why you might like one over the other, but I think the simplest one that's really interesting is just brushes wear out and brushless motors don't. Induction motors can run for decades without any maintenance, without any issues at all. And there are other trade-offs. There are reasons you would want to use a brushed motor.
What do you mean by induction? Is that synonymous with brushless?
Thank you for catching that. Okay, so the induction motor it's brushless. It's one of the types of brushless motors. And for the sake of simplicity, it's using the same concept of coils on the outside, making the rotor in the center spin, but you don't need brushes to make that happen.
Why wouldn't you always do that then? If brushes are a liability, why are you using brushes?
That's so good. That's a good engineering question. Probably more technical than we want to get into.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
The
performance characteristics of the motor are different. The way speed control works, the way the power supplies work, especially motor control is one of the things that really changes when you're using one versus the other.
Because the brushes, just as a matter of principle, have so many points of contact and so much more specificity.
You mean in terms of them wearing out? It's just the rubbing contact of this constantly scrubbing against that. It's basically a carbon rod, if you will, that's being rubbed all the time. And eventually you rub it until there's no material left and you need to replace them.
Okay.
But the performance of those kinds of motors, the characteristics of the motor are different. And sometimes you want that. But that gets really technical in terms of why you would prefer one over the other.
If somebody wanted to try this out and learn about it and experiment with it and not burn down their home or hurt themselves in any way, where would you tell somebody to start?
It would be like a plug, but basically I made a whole series of videos where I go from just the very beginning of here's a wire. And what happens when you coil it up? You get this electric current, right? And so the series is very interesting. It's literally called a beginner series. And I just take you from very first principles. And there's several things inside of the series where examples you could copy at home, because the idea is I want you to actually try it. So that's one of the places where I say, go get the copper tube and get your magnet and drop it inside. And I'll walk you through it. So you could build a rudimentary motor at home and not kill yourself if you follow this series. And by the end of it, you would understand how motors worked.
There are 18 videos currently in this playlist on YouTube.
Yeah, they get progressively more complicated as you go. So the further along I start to get into the weeds where you were asking about why would you choose brushless over brushed. There's one video in there about using motors for different applications. And that's the video. It's like 20 minutes maybe, but it's where I say, this is where you would use a brushed DC motor. This is where you would use an induction motor. It's what that whole series is about.
Where do we do that? Where's your YouTube channel? How do we find it?
The easiest way to find it would just be my name, Jeremy Fielding. That's the name of my YouTube channel. And if you search for that, it'll put you right there on the homepage.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, the last time you were here, you calculated the value of a golden fiddle for us, if I recall.
Yes, and a golden N64.
Yes.
Maybe?
It was a long time ago. But
Yes.
yeah, thank you so much for helping us figure that out. And people can support you on Patreon as well, right?
Yeah, that would be fantastic if they did. If you, I suggest you go check out the content first. If you love it and you want to support what I'm doing, then yeah, I'd love to have you as a patron. It'd help out.
I think my favorite thing about your channel is I've heard a long time ago, interested people are interesting, and I can just tell you're very, very interested in what you're talking about. You're just a good father, a good friend.
Yeah.
You're just a good dude. And I like what you do. I don't know. Matt, do you like what he does?
Well, you know, my family loves your family. I mean, yeah.
I love you guys too, man.
I
You're
think,
make all mushy here. It's
no, I think highly of you, and it was really fun to sit today and watch you kind of flex what you're good at on request. You don't just walk into rooms and start yelling things like this.
No.
But I know your personality really well. Gentleness is a defining characteristic of you. And so to kind of hear that gentleness mingled with this level of I'm interested and excited about a thing was fun. It made sense to me. I'm very grateful.
Thank you. This was quite the challenge to try to. I'm so used to explaining this with visuals. It's really hard to think about this in just a verbal description. But I enjoy trying.
I learned. I'm grateful. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Jeremy Fielding on YouTube. Check him out.